It seems that every year when the month of June, which is known as Pride Month, comes around, some kind of fresh hell is unleashed upon well-meaning and good people in the name of benevolence. Almost every year, we see some kind of degenerate behavior, some kind of antisocial behavior, and some kind of behavior which directly harms the innocence of children and also harms a understanding of norms and what is proper conduct in society, harms all of that, of course, in the name of acceptance. Indeed, as early as we are in Pride Month, we have seen numerous instances of social decay. We have seen state governments, local governments, sponsoring drag queen story hour for little kids in their local public libraries to be read drag queens. We have seen Elmo endorse pride in being gay to his prepubescent audience who have no idea logically what that actually means.
This month and every month, we want to uplift and celebrate our LGBTQIA+ family, friends, and communities.
Yeah, that's right, Miss Ariana. From our Sesame Street family to yours, happy Pride!
We have seen family-friendly drag events have sexual objects displayed for all to see, and don't even get me started on the family-friendly pride events of the past. We have seen so much stuff. And of course, the discourse has run hot. People on the right are getting tired of this, and they are associating all gay people with the degeneracy we have seen. People on the left are defending it in the name of expression and saying that this is a response to the oppression that gay folks and sexual minorities have actually experienced for years. But here's what I say, as myself, an individualist man who happens to be gay. Pride Month itself is a harmful enterprise that actually hurts sexual minorities, transgender people, gay people, all the same as it hurts anyone who is concerned with the truth. Now, before I actually defend my thesis, I have to speak a few hard truths, as I just alluded to a moment ago. Most people these days who associate themselves with the LGBT, LGBTQ, or even the LGB, I don't accept the distinction between the LGB and the TQ. They're both different sides of the same collectivist coin. Most folks who associate with that acronym have emotionally shallow reasoning. Their arguments are absolutely horrible and clouded by their emotions. And also, they have no understanding of the importance of truth and the importance of decency to any society, and they allow their preferences, their passions, to lead them on, which is one of the reasons why you can have the idea of family-friendly drag events accepted in the circles of those who support the acronym of LGBTQ, and they don't bat an eye because their worldview is shaped by their sexual appetites, by their libido. There's a segment of the LGBTQ cult that is like that. Here's another hard truth. The LGBTQ movement has not been about equal rights and acceptance for decades. It is absolutely true that at one point in America, being gay was not only taboo, it was a death sentence. And it is absolutely true that in many parts of the world, it's a death sentence, like in Islamic majority countries, which is very interesting because the same progressives that march for LGBTQ rights also march to have unfettered immigration from countries that throw gays off of buildings. It is undeniably true that a vast majority of gay men have body image issues, they have low self-esteem, high drug use, and they open themselves up to physically and spiritually compromising behavior that does not serve their highest good and degrades them. And all of these things are not by accident. All of these things, these vices, these pitfalls are by design, because when you embrace the LGBTQ acronym, what you're actually embracing is a rejection of who you are as a human being, and that is an individual. You should only use your sexuality as a descriptor, not as an assignment of value. Me being gay does not add any value to my arguments, but our culture is so tainted that we only listen to arguments from people who have certain characteristics. That has shown how far we have fallen as a culture, people, how far the West has fallen from its original exhortations of being reasonable as people, of suppressing our passions, keeping them inside and refining them for the benefit of you and so you can live in a social context. All of that has gone away. And Pride Month is the culmination of all those bad things, all those rejections put into one period of time. So, why do I think Pride Month hurts sexual minorities, transgender people? And why do I think that Pride Month is a socially engineering project to convince the masses that this is a good thing? Very simple, my friends. Think of it this way. Human beings will not accept something unless it has clear value to them. Think about you going to the store. If you go to the store, if someone's trying to sell you something, they're trying to say they have a product that will give you value. And if you don't value that product, you won't buy the product. Well, just like at the store or with the salesperson, they're trying to sell you something of value, and that's the calculus you use to decide if it's worth it or not. The same thing works with mass political propaganda and narrative agents that try to convince you that something on a societal level is not only good and necessary, but it's the logical conclusion of being a good person. And many people oftentimes conflate supporting the LGBTQ cult and supporting Pride Month with being a good person and accepting gay folks for who they are as individuals. Human beings work through association. We see a juicy steak and we imagine a delicious meal. We see a swamp and we imagine ticks, bugs, and perhaps some very smelly environments that might actually not be pleasant to us. These facts can either enhance our knowledge or they can be used as a tool against human understanding of very basic concepts by which we survive and form our understanding of right and wrong, and by consequence preserve society, which is the chief end of ethics. Stay with me, and I promise you, you will get something out of this if you have not already. Pride Month is associated with supporting gay folks. Therefore, it is sold to unassuming people, good people, or normies as they're so called, as benevolent and as necessary to actually support those in their lives who they may be gay, who they may love. But Pride Month, as I mentioned before, is a Trojan horse meant to socially engineer you towards a particular political conclusion. Pride Month misdirects you on 3 levels: intellectual, moral, and social. Intellectually, Pride Month assails your proper understanding of human beings as complex individuals who are not defined by one characteristic, but are actually defined by a myriad of factors that are so complex and so diverse that even areas dedicated to studying human nature, like psychology or biology, can't really conceptualize everything. That's how diverse human nature is, and there's still things we don't know about ourselves. But intellectually, Pride Month says, no, you're going to emphasize one specific part of that person over everything else, deny this complexity, and build a moral political framework around it. What happens when you build a moral and political framework around demonstrably false ideas? You will reach destructive conclusions. That's the intellectual assault. The moral assault then therefore takes that identity that is crafted in this social narrative and they anoint it to be the standard by which we treat people. So for example, there's this idea that marginalized groups have the right to speak about their oppression or their experiences more than anyone else does, and therefore, if a gay person does something or a gay person speaks about the gay life, they are the only person allowed to speak about it, and anyone who critiques them on a societal level is either oppressing them or going against who they are as a person. They are committing what the woke would call erasure. But on a moral level, we have to have the ability to comment and opine about anything in a society that values free expression. Societies that do not value free expression are societies that live terrible, poor, dismal lives and are easily overran by tyranny. And not only that, but the moral understanding of the people in that society is so broken, they can be moved towards the worst atrocities that has ever existed. Just ask 1930s Germany, just ask the Soviet Union, just ask those who partook in Mao's revolution. A society without expression and a society that cannot broach certain topics is a society that is one step away from ultimately reaching a tyrannical conclusion. Morally, we have to have open and honest and convicted conversation about these issues, lest society decay into something that harms everyone's rights, much less the rights of sexual minorities that are so-called under attack. And on a social level, my friends, there is this sort of conflict between those who support the idea of LGBTQ rights and advancement, almost entirely emphasizing expression over any other concept. Expression alone does not make for a good society. Expression alone does not make for one being able to respect their neighbor and their neighbor's goods and their neighbor's wishes insofar as it relates to their life. Expression alone has nothing to say about if you can teach a child about sex. Expression alone is a weak basis by which to base your social environment off of. Instead, social environments need a confluence of factors. They need argument, disagreement. They need people who will be there to say this is not proper, this is not right, and those who will push back against those people to develop a more refined sense of what kind of society we want to have. But when expression is the only standard that we abide by, and everyone who criticizes that expression is dismissed, you have a society that is not healthy and that cannot exist. Justice requires us to be able to express ourselves in a manner that is truthful and honest, and anything outside of that becomes destructive, again, to civilization. The misdirection that I've just identified for you allows the media and those political activists who use this issue as a wedge issue to manufacture consent and shift the Overton window to make certain behaviors accessible. The idea of a transgender child, for example, has become so accepted in our modern day lexicon so as to completely defy all reason and all logic. We don't think that a child, for example, has the ability or the necessity to drink alcohol, or has the ability or necessity to drive a car, or to make other very permanent decisions about their lives at such a young age. And we shouldn't, if we use the same standard, think a child has the ability to know the fullness of who they are, when the fullness of who they are isn't even developed yet and won't be developed until they're in their mid-20s, according to science. And yet, the idea of expression, overcoming everything, overcoming objective truth, objective reality, and being the moral standard has produced this very strange category of children that says no, despite all of these material facts, children can indeed choose who they want to be, down to the very bottom of their sexual physiology. Once again, that is only acceptable and possible in a society that has been manufactured in such a way to accept that they are a bad person unless they accept every form of expression. But sometimes a healthy society will actually reject certain forms of expression in favor of the truth and morally preferable behavior. Once again, the manufacturing consent has induced insanity into our conceptual language. The idea of a family-friendly drag show has actually become a legitimate concept, despite the fact that drag shows are oftentimes connotated with overtly sexual acts that children, in any context really, would not be expected or even approved of being in the sight of, and yet you can have children in the sight of dildos at a pride festival, because once again, it's all about expression. Do you guys see how this misdirection has created new avenues for social ideologies to creep into the family and creep into the private sphere and corrupt our understanding of what is right and what is true? Association is such a powerful tool. It is used, as I mentioned before, to do so many things. But as a gay person, I have seen the anger and malice and hate parents who want to protect their kids from these subversive ideas have. And I want to have no part in pushing these subversive ideas, but most certainly I want to have a part in correcting the excesses of a community of people that not only believe these ideas are morally necessary and correct, but that they are the logical end result of them being able to express themselves. Well, I say to hell with your expression if it endangers an entire generation of children and threatens their development. That's why in this video I have the hashtag gays against pride, because I want to start a movement of people that understand that what pride stands for is not admirable, it's not benevolent, it is malicious. And it has nothing to do with the gay part and everything to do with it being a political agenda to push this abstract and incorrect idea of what it actually means to be gay and then foist that onto people in the name of benevolence by weaponizing good people's sensibilities against them. That's what the modern day pride movement seeks to do. Now, there are plenty of people who will look at everything I've told you and shown you and associate it with being gay, say that gay marriage brings forth a slippery slope. and that it brings forth degeneracy, and that all gay people should, just be consigned to this category of society and seen as the other or whatever. And Pride Month actually, I think, is a reason for gay men to become conservative. I consider myself a conservative in the American sense. And conservatism might actually be the antidote to all of the chaos we are seeing in the world. Conservatives simply believe in the importance of beauty, truth, and order in the natural world as translated into society, and the importance of higher standards in governing conducts. Hierarchies not only in society, but hierarchies of behavior as well, that help us shape and refine the proper kind of conduct that we need to have in a free society. That's what conservatism is, which is why I endorse gay men getting married in a monogamous relationship and starting families. I endorse all of this stuff because it is the logical conclusion of following a life, not of vice and not of indulgence, but a life of continence and a life of virtue. Because we have seen, and we will continue to see, where a life of indulgence and a life of vice leads so many gay men. It leads them to having monkeypox or some kind of inextricable sexual disease. It leads them to justifying moral atrocity in the name of being a good person, which actually is the opposite of what they're doing. It leads them to viewing themselves collectively, which gets to my next point, as opposed to as an individual. And it leads them to subscribing uncritically to a political program which does nothing more than actually harm them vis-a-vis the associations that program entails with what it does, as I mentioned previously. The real reason as well that gay men should become conservative and reject Pride Month is because of the collectivism of Pride Month. See, Pride Month centers value in identity. It centers value in a part of who you are, as opposed to centering value in higher ideas and concepts that you use to govern your life. That's precisely what it does. And that is a mistake, because someone's identity doesn't tell you much about them, their character. But what it does, it tells you about their conduct. And this kind of reductive belief, reducing gay men to their conduct as opposed to having a fuller view of who they are, leads nowhere healthy and fundamentally misses the point of what it means to be a human being. And when Ben Shapiro, for example, said that pride is a result of individualism, I said, no, it's not. Because individualism actually rejects pride because it doesn't estimate your value as a human being on the basis of your sexual conduct. It estimates your value as a human being on the basis of all the component characteristics of who you are, and also on your values, which are spiritual and transcend just your conduct or your crude matter that's on your skin or that's in your conduct. That is the importance of embracing a conservative mentality for gay men, is that it aligns them with the truth and keeps them away from the darkness that we're seeing right now. And of course, I would be remiss if I ended this video without talking about how queer theory feeds into the collectivism of pride. Many of you have been exposed to queer theory. I have a video on queer theory, 1 hour and 30-minute video on queer theory. I'll link in the description down below if you want to see it. It'll be in the comment section down below in the description. Queer theory basically says that all norms are oppressive, and therefore it is incumbent upon people who have different identities to use their identities as a means of subverting norms, destroying norms, and then replacing them with their own subjective interpretations. This is how you get the idea of there being family-friendly drag shows, because the idea of family is being reversed and it's being subverted to include things that would normally not be included, because it's all about subverting the norm. But the conservative understands that healthy norms based on reason and sound logic, are norms that should be upheld and are necessary for society to exist. And these are norms that are also morally justifiable. All norms are not oppressive, but the ones that are useful need to stay. But the queer theorist believes that all norms, by virtue of them merely existing, are heteronormative and oppressive. How many times have you heard similar arguments from advocates of the LGBTQ+? I hear them all the time, and it's a shame. It's leading us to a place of moral chaos. Friends, before you celebrate Pride Month, or associate this month with something benevolent, ask yourself one question. Who stands to benefit from such mass exhibition of a private matter, and who stands to suffer? I'll answer the last part for you before I go. All of us, including the gay folks who think they're being served by this cult appreciation month, stand to suffer. And no one, except the elite, the technocrats, and the social engineers that wish to bend society to their will, stand to gain. My friends, love you guys so much. If you love me, like this video, comment on this video, share this video. Do everything you can. Make sure you get this message out there. Join our Discord community. Donate to me. All that information will be in the comment section down below. I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.